for January 10th, 2019. Let's all rise for our pledge and our invocation. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this new year. We thank you for your love and your mercy. We thank you for those who are here. Thank you for this council, and we thank you for this community. Father, we just pray that your blessings would fall upon the residents of this community. And we just pray, Father, as this year goes on, that your mercy would fall as well. We love and praise you in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks, Council, for being here. Mr. Gilpin, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Ross.
Here.
Mr. Noble.
Here.
Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Coogan.
Here.
Ms. Shepherd.
Here.
Ms. Hallfield.
Here.
All right, that brings us to approval of our minutes of our December 13th meeting. I hope that you all have seen those. And if you have, are there any corrections or amendments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept them as read.
I move we accept the minutes of
December 13th,
Thank you, December the 13th as written,
2018.
2018.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Okay, this one here. Ms. Ross.
Yes.
Mr. Noble.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Coogan.
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd.
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield.
Yes.
Any communications this evening?
There are none?
All right, that brings us to public input. Do we have any public input this evening? If so, you could step forward, introduce yourself, and like anything you might have. No public input? All right, that brings us to our administration and committee reports. I'm up first, and I have a lot of things to do here, so. First up is our Mayor's Court report for the month of December 2018. We had a total revenue of $6,809, with $4,985 going to the village, $1,756.50 to the state, and $67.50 to the county. Also during this time, I would like us to go ahead and elect a pro tem of council. It's something we do every year. First meeting of the year, nominate a vice mayor or president pro tem of council.
I nominate Lucy Shepherd as pro tem.
We have a nomination. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. It doesn't matter to me.
Second. All right, Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Is Ms. Hallfield and Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Ross.
Yes.
Mr. Noble.
No.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Coogan.
No.
Ms. Shepherd.
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield.
Yes.
All right. Well, then, Ms. Shepherd, you're still a lucky pro tem.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you. You ready, Mr. Gilpin?
I am.
You are?
I am, yes.
Okay. Also, every year this meeting I read the State of the Village address and just go into it here. This happens to be my 8th State of the Village address. This also marks the beginning of my 12th year filling one of these seats up here where you all are sitting. And this is the first time I have to say that the state of the village is very precarious. With one vote, this council undid everything that has been done for the last 10 years. We had come back from financial chaos. We were recognized by the state for our diligent recovery and getting ourselves on firm financial ground. We, for the first time, had the ability to aggressively go after grant money, which would benefit all in the community. And we did this all with a 0.5% income tax and only 2 other small levies. All other communities around us have many levies, including police levies and a 1% income tax. I've always been proud that we here in the village of Bethelwood cut the size of government and increased our police department, and did it while taxing our residents less than any other communities. But it is a new day. We are now faced with a council who worries more about what is said on Facebook by anti-village, anti-government anarchists than what is in the best interest of our entire community. We have a council who, because of a majority vote, defunded a very good police department, putting us in jeopardy of losing very good officers who cannot be replaced. And that's for the first time, I might add, we don't have funding for our police department ever. We have a council who believes truly in majority vote and rule, which goes against our founding fathers' beliefs. We are a democratic republic, not a true democracy. Why? Because our founding fathers knew that the masses sometimes get things wrong. Do you recall your oath of office you took? You swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and the ordinances and resolutions of the Village of Bethel. Nowhere in that oath did it say to keep promises I made to constituents to get elected. In my opinion, with the irresponsible vote to defund police, you have in fact subverted law and inserted chaos. A little bit of history for several of you who haven't been around long. I took office in 2012 as mayor, and we've had a very depleted police department at that time. They were very understaffed. We ran a police levy in 2013 to try to get them more money to hire officers, and it was defeated. In 2013, I went to my first Mayor's Association conference, and while there, I was amazed to find out that at the time, 84% of the municipalities had imposed an income tax in the state of Ohio. It's much more now. I approached Rita at that conference and asked them to come speak to finance about the municipal income tax. They did so later that year, and council at the time was not in favor, but instead chose to run another police levy, which subsequently failed. That was the $4 million. My goal was to have the police fully funded, which meant we needed to raise approximately $500,000. It took many months, but after a lot of contested meetings, council compromised and decided they would support a 0.5% income tax. And believe me, those committee meetings were rough. They were rough. Then the process of getting it passed began. We tried for 3 months to educate people on municipal finance, how it all works, and the specific way police are funded. We tried explaining millage, how it all worked against us in our area. I was very proud of how the former council stood against a very vocal 10 people who threatened them on Facebook and in council. We fought through this for nearly 2 years and then had to go through it all again when it was repealed in 2016. So to sit here and hear a council member say we took the easy way out is an insult to the highest regard. It was not easy by any stretch. You ask yourself, why did the state of Ohio insert the law that gives municipalities the right to impose an income tax? The legislature knew that eventually people would rise up and oppose taxes, which is the only way for municipal entities to function. Also, cities and villages provide a majority of the services for their respective communities. So the state gave us the ability to implement this tax up to 1% to keep our services funded. To not use this lawful means of funding is reckless. We are a strong, vibrant community that can afford the income tax. Many poorer communities all around us have a 1% income tax and police levies. We must have a full-time Village of Bethel Police Department if we want to keep our village strong and moving forward. In all my 12 years in these seats, I've never promised anyone anything except to tell the truth. If someone says that I promised something, whatever, they're wrong. Here's the truth. A year ago, we were a village that was thriving, new businesses were coming here, and there was general optimism. That is all gone now. I fear we will see a flight of good families and the continued expansion of low-income housing. We are now on the verge of being a larger Felicity, and that is a fact. I've always stolen a line from Bill Cunningham. It is okay to disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. I find myself being more and more disagreeable with several of you on this council, and that, to be honest, is uncharted waters for me. And I must say I don't like it, but I do love this village, and I will defend it always vigorously. To see it assaulted and altered by a few people who don't even live in the village is disgusting. We must find a way to come together and once again compromise to find a solution. And I got to say, that began tonight in finance. That is the nature of politics, and like it or not, I fear there is much political posturing going on behind the scenes. This coming year is going to be a tough year for us. No matter which way we go, it's going to be a year of lost revenue, and no matter what we do, it's going to be very hard. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate you, council. To be honest, you've kind of made it hard on yourselves with the vote. But hopefully we can figure out a way to come together and have a solution for our community. So, that's it. Thank you for listening. It's one of the toughest State of the Villages I've ever wrote. Always before, my State of the Village was very optimistic and we were always on the upswing, but with the police unfunded, I don't have a whole lot of optimism for our community. All right, Village Administrator, Mr. Dotson.
Thank you. We have legislation for this year's CDBG grant. It will be matched with street fund money, not general fund. This will be stormwater repair. We're still waiting to hear on the OPWC grant. That's supposed to be going to the small government funding option. We haven't heard from that yet. That was for East Street. This will be an application for the South Cherry Street portion. The estimate was $236,000. The CDBG funding is a maximum of $200,000, so we'll probably have to match it. Probably $40,000 will be the match, and that'll come out of street fund. That will affect the amount of paving that we can do this year, but we've got to try to make a dent in the stormwater repairs that are needed, especially on this end of town at the moment. So that's what I would like to do. I would ask council to pass that legislation this evening. We also have legislation for the peddlers and solicitation, and Ms. Supinger may speak more to that. That's something that our current grant removal ordinance is outdated and doesn't allow us to enforce that. We do have calls from time to time on registering for solicitation, and we really don't have a policy in place for that, so that's something that we need. It would be nice to get that adopted tonight, but if council would prefer to spend more time reviewing that, it's something that we could just have as a first reading, if that was council's choice. And I think that's all I have.
We have a lot of infrastructure needs.
We do.
Stormwater, culverts, all that. True. Fiscal Officer, Mr. Gilpin.
Just a couple quick things. Just want to report I am still very busy working on the year-end reporting. We have reconciled all the funds, and we are officially up to speed for 2019. Everything was closed out. All the new purchase orders, blanket certificates have been opened. Everything is in place. Have till the end of February to file the annual financial report. I'm working on the notes to the financial statement. I'll have it done prior to the end of the month, maybe within the next week or so, but certainly by the end of January. Also, I mentioned earlier that I got a phone call from April Davis from Local Government Services earlier today, and that phone call was I received an invitation to participate in the local government conference again this year. I've presented classes in the past. This year is more of an advisory position where I'll be assisting with a class. They wanted a fiscal officer to sit in and answer questions. I believe the subject of the class matter is going to be tax deadlines and certain things have to be done by a certain point in each month throughout the year. So it'll be for new fiscal officers, so I'm going to assist them with that class at the end of March in Columbus. And then the last thing I had, Finance last week discussed amending the appropriations even though they're temporary. And at that time, there were, I believe, 4 minor changes, the most of which was I had forgotten to put money in the electric fund for audit charges for this year. The day after Finance, we received the checks from the Burke Trust. And just to back up and comment on that a little bit, There was some confusion by the trust administrators at Key Bank. If you recall, that was the first time that the unanimous vote came into play. And when I submitted the paperwork to Key Bank, they stated, when I contacted them, when I got closer to the end of the year and we still didn't have it, and I asked them, I told them I really wanted to get it on the books in 2018, and got a call back a few days later from them stating that they could not contact Mr. Swarthout, that all they had was his cell phone number, and he does not have it set up to accept voicemails, so they were unsuccessful in trying to contact him because as the way they read the paperwork, even though it was a unanimous vote, they still needed to consult with him, let him know that those disbursements were going to be made. Once we gave them his home phone number, it was wrapped up fairly quickly. I talked to him a couple times in one day. Unfortunately, the checks did not get here until the day after finance, so I have amended that line item as well. We had $8,000 in the Burke donation, which is our standard line for grass cutting request, but I increased it by the $2,950 that was approved for the concrete picnic tables and $25,000 for the partial cost of the installation of the playground equipment. So I did add that to the figures in ordinance. I believe it's 1905, and I just wanted to disclose that prior to that being considered later in the meeting. That's all I've got.
All right, thanks, Mr. Goodman. Next up is our solicitor, Ms. Supinger.
I don't have a report. I am happy to answer any questions about the legislation that's here tonight, if you want to entertain it tonight, or if you want to just do a first reading and have an opportunity to go through it and then ask any questions. That's fine.
Do that when we get there, or do you want to?
It doesn't make any difference if you want to ask questions now. It's fine.
What prompted solicitors and peddlers?
Most solicitor and peddler ordinances that were on the books are pretty old, the 80s and early 90s, and since that time there have been a number of Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court decisions that have found those ordinances to be unconstitutional. A lot of them just did either an outright prohibition on solicitation or severely restricted it, and the court said that violated First Amendment rights. So what we have done is, and frankly the one that Bethel had would fall into that category. So what we've done is we're going to be repealing the existing ordinance and replacing it with one that meets constitutional muster. It still requires commercial solicitors who want to come into the village to sell things to come and receive they have to get a permit, they have to go through a background check, they have to be able to display their permit when they go door to door, and people who do not want to have people knocking on their door can put up no solicitation signs, and the person will be prohibited from going to their doorstep. So it's a fairly comprehensive one that deals with all sorts of, not just commercial solicitation, but non-commercial and canvassers and those types of people who go door to door, and addresses what can and can't be done and sets hours and those types of things.
What's the penalty for violation?
A misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would, because I know somebody had reached out to me, so I reached out to Travis on this issue. We would, once this is enforced, then whomever is being solicited by somebody who maybe does not have the permit, they would call the police department for that, and the police department would have to come out. Okay.
That's correct.
So for an example, if someone's going around selling vacuum cleaners, then they are authorized to give them a misdemeanor for doing it.
Correct. If they do not come in and get a permit, or if they go to a house that has a no solicitation sign, or if they solicit outside the set hours, there's a number of ways that the ordinance can be violated.
Is there a fee for the permit?
It's $75.
Okay.
Jeez.
Does that apply to like politicians as well?
So that would be canvassing, and they don't require a permit.
Okay.
They are regulated by the statute.
Religion?
That would also be a canvasser. If you're not selling anything, it's considered canvassing.
Okay.
So a person that's canvassing does not have to have a permit? Or
They do not have to go through the background check and all that stuff.
do they have to have the permit though?
No.
Okay.
If you put up a no solicitation sign, does that allow the campers to still go up?
No, they should not go to those houses.
Any other thing else, council?
What I'm getting at.
This is still a misdemeanor, if you go.
So under the ordinance, it provides that any resident or business within the community may post a no solicitation sign conspicuously on the property to bar entry to the property from any commercial or non-commercial solicitors and canvassers. So if you have a non-solicitation sign, no one should be coming and knocking on your door.
No one.
No.
Okay, good. Any other questions, council?
How long is the permit good for?
It is good for, let me look. I think it's 60 days. Hold on. I'm not finding it real quickly. I think it's either 30 days or 60 days.
But a person then seeking
You can
reelection.
Okay, so that's for a commercial solicitation permit.
Okay.
So that doesn't apply to someone who is running for office. They don't have a.
So this
limit.
only applies if they're selling something?
The permit,
Exactly.
the actual permit, they have to come in and do the background check and all
Okay,
that stuff.
okay.
Okay,
Does the money go to the general fund?
I would assume so.
yes.
Yes.
Permits do.
It would be under the permit, whatever.
Any more questions of Ms. Supinger for that? Anything else, Ms. Supinger? All right, Chief of Police, Mark Plunk.
For the month of, December, 150 calls answered, 30 offense reports, 8 incidents, 6 crashes. We had 30 traffic arrests, 59 traffic warnings, and 63 special details. We assisted other departments 38 times. We had 234 supplements to reports. There were 2 vacant residence checks. There were 94 businesses checked, where the officer got out on foot and went inside. We had 220 student contacts. We had 71 staff contacts at school, and 63 parent contacts, and 4 presentations and meetings. And we worked 26 offense reports. And then let me give you the 2018 numbers for the Bethel Tate Fire Department. They responded to 119 fires in the village. They had 746 EMS runs. And then I did a mileage breakdown on the cars. Car 113, which is a 2013 Ford Explorer, on December 31st had 85,187 miles. It was driven 6,971. The Tahoe that the sergeant drives had 26,174 on it, with a total of 5,813. The car 503, which is a 2013 Ford Explorer, had 73,414, with a mileage of 10,492 for the year. The car I drive, the 2014 Ford Explorer, has 44,585 and a total of 10,842. The new 18 Ford Explorer that we just took delivery of has 670 miles on it, and it was driven 182 miles since we got it brand new. And the old Crown Victoria, which is 505, has 108,928 miles for a grand total of 6,758. And the total of all cars that we drove in 2018 was 41,058 miles. Back and forth to hospitals, back and forth to jails. Yeah, we put a lot of miles on.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Chief, you said you had 200 contacts with students?
Yeah.
That means you went to the schools 200 times?
No, it's every time that we go into school, we normally have contact with 40 or 50 kids, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Checking on them, and then with me, I probably see 40 kids in a school, and then I just probably estimate that I see 4 teachers.
Okay.
So,
I just wanted to clarify that.
no.
I mean, I know you guys get called to the school a lot now, but I mean, I didn't, yeah.
And Sergeant and I check the schools during the day.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Go ahead.
Next up is our Safety Committee Chair, Ms. Holyfield.
Safety met on the 3rd of January and was given a presentation by the Claremont County Sheriff's Department to possibly enter into contract with them. And there was a question and answer session, and that is an option on the table right now.
Okay.
That's all I have. We have not set our next meeting. Do you want to do that now, or?
Might as well.
Sure. Did we set any other meetings for February?
We were gonna have a town hall.
Well, I mean, for our business meetings, committees.
It doesn't matter to me. I'm guessing finance is on the 14th, right before council.
Actually, we may need to hold off because we're going to have to set committees. We don't even have committees basically right now.
That's true.
So we need to set committees. And once that's done, we'll
So next
move
meeting.
forward. We will go ahead and set our finance for February.
Well, we will need safety to meet. We do have a 5K plan, but it's not until summer, so we'll run that through the next safety committee.
Okay, so we'll just hold off until.
Yeah, we'll be getting those set. Finance Committee Chair, Ms. Shepherd.
We met January the 3rd, and as Mr. Gilpin has already spoken to, we need to amend our temporary appropriations. We also did a pie chart that represented our revenue, which I'm hoping that you saved that, Mr. Gilpin, in case anybody would like to have a copy of that. Mr. Noble was so kind to prepare a graph that demonstrates our need for the additional funding because it represents our general fund dwindling. And we also asked Ms. Supinger to supply us with some ballot wording for whatever we decide to put on the ballot. We did not decide in that meeting, but we had another meeting tonight previous to council. And at that meeting, we have decided to put the advisory opinion, a formula levy that we're going to bring towards council, bring to council to vote on. Well, we only decided like 12 times on that and then changed it 13. So we will be.
We need a motion from
I need to,
council.
I will entertain a motion to put that on the ballot.
So this is in debate.
Oh, this will be in legislation.
Okay.
Oh, you have it on legislation?
Well, I don't know if it made that, but we should vote on that when we do legislation and.
You have the legislation for it?
We have the legislation, I can read it.
Okay, thank you. My apologies, Ms. Shepherd.
Okay.
Didn't know we had the legislation available to us. Anything else, Ms. Shepherd?
I believe that's all I have.
All right, thanks. Next up is Parks and Village Property, Mr. Coogan.
We were supposed to meet on 7 January, but that meeting got canceled due to the lack of an ordinance we needed for our meeting. It wasn't brought to Ms. Seppinger's attention in time in order to make this happen through whatever means. But anyways, we need to schedule another meeting for next month.
And the ordinance was for the...
For adjusting the banner policy.
Right. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Burke Trust, Ms. Ross?
We have not had a meeting, however, I feel like once committees are set, the Burke Trust should meet with the commission.
Do we ever get that set?
No, I don't believe so.
Man, they're tough.
Yeah.
They're tough.
Maybe Mr. Gilpin can reach out to the representative of the trust and try to get some dates that he's available, and then we can...
Now we have his home number.
Say call Mr. Swift at home.
Exactly.
Yes, we need to do that because we have to have a joint meeting.
Yes. So I just would recommend that whoever is on that committee be aware that that probably needs to be done
Quickly.
yes. And that is all.
All right, thanks. Personnel Committee, Ms. Brown.
We haven't met yet. Something that I'll have to come up and call members may require a meeting, just about the handbook or whatever, but other than that.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, we haven't met.
All right, speaking of call members, we are there. Ms. Ross, you're up.
I don't have much, but I would like to say in response to your state of the village that my vote, I can't speak for anybody else, my vote was not irresponsible. I labored over the decision of what to do. It was very hard for me. I don't remember any promises that I made. However, that was what I felt was right at the time. Now, we, I think, together have done a lot to look at all ways for funding to be completed, to be done, any possibilities. And I think that, you know, in the end, we may end up back there. I don't know that as for certain today. I'm hoping maybe that the levy will be an answer to the issues that we have, but, you know, that's something for a later date. But I just wanted everyone to know that my vote, I felt, was very responsible, and the way it may not have been popular, it was what I felt at the time the right thing to do. But on another note, this is just kind of off topic, but I had the occasion to attend a meeting with the Historical Society with my Girl Scout hat on last Saturday, and they had a couple of questions about the chairs that were upstairs. And so I just thought maybe I would bring that to the council's attention if they were what they were planning on doing with the blue chairs that were upstairs.
I think there's like 75 chairs upstairs.
There's a load of them, yeah. The plastic,
They're plastic, they're nice heavy-duty chairs. They're the same chairs we have over at the community center, except those are burgundy colored and these are blue. So with the maybe pending sale of it, that's the question about the stuff that belongs to the village in there. What are we going to do with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing goes with the building. All the,
Unless council decides to do that.
all the tangible objects in the building will either have to be removed or there be some sort of, we have, if the village decides it doesn't need it, it has specific ways that it has to get rid of items. So, but it's not currently included, it's not included in the purchase contract.
And furnishings normally are not included.
Apparently there were, and I was not an active part of that conversation because I had a different hat on that day, but that was something that I think that they weren't real sure about. So that is just
those tables up there, we don't know any of those tables, I think most of those tables are either the Lions and the Knights of Pythias.
Yes.
Those blue chairs are fairly new. Those are within the last 5 years or so. So those do have, a value that we would have to.
Well, I just wanted to say something because if it was something that we were going to keep, I just wanted to remind you guys that they were there. I don't think I ever even realized they were there. I mean, I'm there twice a month, so.
What would we do with them?
Well,
Can we sell them?
I think we could probably use a portion of them in the community center, not all of them, but we could look and see what we can do with them.
So I just thought that'd be a question for council about that, and then just to double
If we were
check.
gonna sell, we might sell the burgundy ones that are more used and keep the blue ones, because those are.
That is
those
true.
are in better, I would assume they're in better shape, yeah.
Yeah, they are. I can tell you they are.
And the other question that was brought up was the furnaces, and I'm trying to remember, because I didn't say, because I couldn't remember. We are going to replace those furnaces. That was part of
That was in
the contract,
It's in the
correct?
purchase agreement.
The purchase agreement.
The due diligence period on the contract expires, I think, in 2 days.
Okay.
Once we get through the due diligence period, and all contingencies have been met or waived.
Okay.
Or have expired, then we can go ahead and proceed. We weren't gonna change out the furnaces until we knew.
And that's what I thought that we had discussed, but I was not.
Well, especially because they want gas, which,
Yeah.
if the village were to keep it, would not replace with gas, it would replace with electric.
With electric. Okay. But
The commercial appraisal is gonna be done Monday, so.
is it? Okay. But, I mean, I thought that was a very good meeting. I appreciate it. It's going to have, everyone seems to be working together. They have a lot of good ideas, and there's a lot of energy. And the Historical Society and working with, the different groups that are going to try to be a part of it. So, I'm excited as a Girl Scout leader to kind of volunteer my time and my troops' time. So that'll be a good thing for us. But that is all.
All right, thanks, Mr. Russell. Mr. Noel, you up?
Thank you. I guess again, I have a different view and a different vision of where I see how to handle the obstacles that we have with the village. So, I mean, that might be my agree to disagree statement. You know, I try my best to be fair. I think that there's a lot of things that we've done over the last year that have proven that. You know, we've also tried to reach out and do additional things, you know, yard hens and communication commission and the liquor option, and we've all worked together and so forth, but I know there's a strong agree to disagree concept there on what was trying to be done in the past versus where we are now today, and I think that it is very important and it's essential to listen to the voters of the town that actually, you know, get out and exercise that right and vote. So, and whether I like it or not, that's, you know, or if I personally like it or not, then that's the direction that I'm taking. So, and people can hate me for it if they want, but I got put in office because of that belief, and that's a promise. Yes, it is a promise. I didn't promise any specific individual little thing, and I proved that by voting for raises last month. I proved that by some of the other things that I've done. So, you know, bottom line is, I made a promise to the voters I'd listen to them, and I would, if I have an option to vote, then I would listen to that vote. So, the second thing I have is I would like to know if we're going to enact this Communications Commission this month. You know, it's been pushed down the road for a long time, and we've done a lot of work to get it here, and
I have my people in place. Do you have yours?
well, I was in the understanding that you were supposed to recommend every position here,
No.
with the exception of who's going to be on it from council.
No, I had to,
I have to pull up the legislation, I don't have it in front of me.
I don't even know how many people are supposed to be.
But
on it.
yeah, it's kind of getting aggravating, to be honest with you, that every time we turn around, there's always an excuse or something's, you know, not working out right, and we have to postpone. And, you know, we made this commitment to the school board, the township, you know, the BVA, and all these people that, you know, we need a functionable type of system that we can all sit down and communicate. And we haven't had one meeting in a year. So, and this was my way to kind of officially make it happen, and we're still not getting anywhere with it. So
I was under the impression that I had to make 3 appointments, and then council was going to make appointments. I'm not going to appoint everybody to it. I can't appoint people that aren't even village residents to something. I can't, I mean, I guess I could ask them to do it.
well, I figured that's why you wanted the, like I sent you some names. I think Janessa sent you some names, and I thought that was kind of what you were doing. I thought you were kind of reaching out to them to kind of interview them and see who would be a better fit and this and that. I mean, that's what I thought you were doing.
You
but
sent me names?
Yes, I did. I sent you a few names.
Who were they?
Leah Fields, Daniel Perry, when we have the school board gentleman, we have Howard Daugherty.
I've spoke to Howard, I spoke to Mr. Dr.
Schuler,
and I spoke to Dave Brannick.
Dave Brannick, okay. And then we got Leah Fields, Daniel Perry. I have an email here I sent you probably about, it may have been before the election or right after, one or the other.
Well, we get busy and things come up, especially before the election and with all that's been going on. Things do get pushed aside. With all the work we've been doing at the museum and all the work we did before the election and all the stuff for the income tax, it's been difficult, Jay.
I think this is the missing piece to solve some of these other problems, though, too. You know, I mean, pulling the community tighter together.
Well,
getting
again, I
bigger base.
disagree with you on it, because I think it'll be nothing but a gripe session. But we will do it. Okay? Together we'll do it.
Thank you.
Yep. Can you find it, Mr. Bennett?
I'm not finding it.
I think there
Can you
was
find it, Mr.
six
Dodson?
members.
You had to appoint one of us. That's what we were waiting on. I think it was you had to appoint one of us, a council, on it, and I'm not sure that ever was done. I don't recall that ever being done.
No, I don't think anybody on council's on it. I think there was like 6 people, but I kind of
assumed-
duplicated with Jay on names, because I didn't want anybody that
She found
didn't
it.
feel
I
Okay, it'll open for me.
mean, I can, I don't care. I mean, I just.
I would like you to be on it,
It's
Jay,
not
since you're,
got
it's
a
your
link
brain
on the website
child.
to open it. It was ordinance 1885. But I can't get it to open.
Okay.
Jay, I make a commitment to you, before our next meeting, we will have a meeting on it.
All right, the composition of the commission shall be as follows. 2 members of council. 1 representative from Bethel Tate School, 1 representative from Bethel Business Association, 1 representative from the Bethel Police Department, and 2 residents. The mayor shall make the 2 council member appointments and the police department appointments. The remaining appointments shall be made by the majority of the members of council.
So you guys got more work than I got to do.
No, we've already got the answers, that's why I forwarded them to you to interview them.
But that's not my job.
Well,
it's your job.
I didn't get a feedback from you, so I didn't.
He's gonna be our.
It's not any council member's job, it's a majority of council.
Right, that's what I mean. You
But
guys
you have
the-
to appoint 2 people from council.
So I guess you would say
2 members.
names, and then we would vote on it.
You appoint the 2 council members and the police department rep.
And then, does Jay just name 2 residents or
Why don't we have them come
whatever?
to the next meeting if they're interested? If the whole council, if it says the whole council, we'll put them on there. We can vote on them as a council.
You also can, I mean, there's different ways you can do it. You can take applications, you can set up interviews. We do have the ability to discuss the appointments in executive session, if that's what council would like to do, to make the
Like to just hear
appointments.
from
It's
them.
Have to be
whatever.
residents of the village of Bethel?
2 are residents, 1 school board member, 1 BBA member. So there's 4. There's 4 the council will pick, a school board member, a BBA member, and 2 residents.
Do we have any residents that are members of the ministerial, like the, whatever the ministry?
Ministerial Association.
Yeah, I was like,
Dan Ash.
Dan Ashley lives in the village.
that might be good to
But I don't
have
think those
that.
people appointed have to be, like, I don't know if anybody on the BBA is a resident of the village.
Well, no,
No,
but
but she's
these,
saying it'd be nice to have a representative who can
From
represent the
the
ministerial.
ministerial association, because that
Have to
was
be a resident.
one of the things we were asked at that group session.
Jonathan Taylor. He's also a resident.
So my job is to appoint 2 council members and a police representative. Well, I've asked Mr. Noble to do, are you willing to do it, Mr. Noble?
Yeah.
He has to. It's his baby.
And I need 1 other volunteer. Okay, I volunteer Ms. Brown.
I'll do it, I don't care. I have that problem at work too. so
Now, we don't have to vote on that, they don't have to
No.
vote on that,
Okay,
because
you
that's
just
my
make the
appointment.
No, and then everybody votes on the others.
Maybe 4.
And Chief, because he's a village resident, so I'm done.
Thank you, sir.
And we will, I mean it, I want to have one of those before next meeting. And maybe
On what?
one of these,
We can't have a meeting.
That's
We
right.
We have the
Council has to make that.
oh my
Can
gosh.
we have a second council meeting just
Do they have to, can they do it tonight?
We have executive
Well,
session.
We may
tonight.
have to.
Okay, so we will have to have a second council meeting if you want to do the levy, because
That's true.
we have to do another piece of legislation once we get the certification from the auditor.
So if
before
council
it has
can
to
all
go.
have names
Get
for that.
the names you had, are they village residents, you said? All right, well, that should work.
Okay.
All right, good. Anything else, Mr. Noble? You're still up, actually.
Still you.
Can I ask a question? Are we going to get a school board member and one person from the BBA?
I think Mr. Shula already
He's our school board
volunteered.
member? Okay.
Already volunteered.
I know Dave Brannick is on the school board, he was interested in it as well, so.
And who from the BBA? Is he a resident? Any ideas?
Of the village, no.
I could ask Frank
I don't think it
Salvatore to do
matters.
it.
You what?
I don't think either one of them are.
No,
residents.
neither am I.
Could ask Mike to do it. He's the president
President of
of,
BBA.
BBA.
Yeah.
Or at least let him know we're looking for someone
right.
possibly to volunteer.
Maybe he'd have a better idea of somebody else. Well, yeah, so we're gonna have to have a second meeting this month, so have the name, we'll vote on it. And maybe have a meeting in February.
Good deal.
And you'll have the opportunity to prove me wrong.
I really hope I can.
Yeah.
I hope you can too.
Anything else, Mr. Noble?
That's it, thank you.
All right, Ms. Brown?
All right. So I sat in the audience for the last two finance meetings now, and I had a couple questions. I sent some to Bill, which I'll wait, as long as we get some of that for the town hall that you think would be valuable for that, I'm fine with whenever, because I know end of year, you're busy. You're a busy,
Well, I
busy
did see that you
person.
sent it, but at the time, I saw it on my phone, but my email's down and I couldn't do anything with it.
Which, I'm not trying to rush you, because I know end of the year is awful for anybody. But at the first one, did I hear correctly that the homestead tax would not apply to a new levy?
That's correct.
That's correct.
So any of the residents currently getting the homestead tax would just pay the normal amount on any new levies that we create?
Well, let me clarify that. If they're getting homestead or rollback on their house for other things, it doesn't affect that.
Right, but
It's just that in the old days, so to speak, if you passed a new levy, the county auditor would certify that it would raise this much money, but the taxpayer would only pay 87.5% of it. The 10% rollback and the 2.5% homestead was reimbursed to the local government through the state. Several years ago, the state stopped doing that, and any levy passed from that date forward, the taxpayers pay 100% of the levy.
Okay, so,
And not everybody qualifies for homestead and
Right.
rollback in the first place, but those that did, it would not apply to a new levy.
to any new levy.
Well, the homestead is you own the home that you live in. And then the other one is for,
And I think
People
homestead, you have
that-
to be, I think you have to be over 65, don't you?
Or low income, maybe?
Yeah,
No,
there's
it has
criteria,
nothing
you
to
have
do
to,
with
you have to fill out
low income.
paperwork to qualify.
is that the
for
homestead exemption? And-
It is an exemption, and you have to fill out paperwork to
That's
qualify for
correct.
it. So
You have to
the
be
vast
over
majority of people don't
65.
get that.
Yeah,
And you're limited on your income.
okay. Because I know one resident had mentioned, I'll get the homestead next year. Well, it wouldn't apply to,
To that levy. It would for everything else they have.
right, okay. The other thing that I had was kind of talked to tonight, that the 4 mil is kind of part-time option in a way.
As long as there's never any,
Never any absentees or sickness or funerals or anything like that that people have to go to.
vacations. As long
Vacations.
as they never take a vacation.
Okay. Some of the things, like, I know a lot of people were disappointed with my decision. I've apologized to people on Facebook that I've disappointed in my decision on the income tax. I own that. For me, it came down to the fact that people were willing to dissolve the village, and I could not verify at the time if people would be without electric and without the services that are very important to those on oxygen and very important to the people who are most vulnerable in society, and it did influence me heavily. I am glad, though, that people have the opportunity to be educated, because I do firmly believe if we educate and we try as best we can, that the people with level heads will prevail in the situation and realize that there is truly a need for police, and there's truly a need for funding for police, and whatever's best for their household, whether it be a levy or whether it be an income tax. I believe that hopefully, if we educate and show the facts for both and let them weigh the decision, that they come to a decision for a majority for whichever one. I don't really care. I pay both ways. Currently, I'm paying that's all I do is pay bills at this point in my life. The other thing that concerns me, though, is I do not want anybody to think that I'm willing to lose our police force. So I am giving you an opportunity, the whole council is giving you the opportunity to educate yourself, to decide what's best for your household, but the funding still has to be there, and I still have an obligation to ensure that we have cops. It's not a fun decision. I don't like asking people for money either way, whether it be tax or levy. I would love it if we didn't have to do that. I would love it if the libertarian philosophy worked and we didn't have to pay taxes, but it just doesn't. But I do want to see our village grow because I think growth will bring in the revenue. I think new construction brings in a higher property tax value. I don't know, Bill could probably attest to that, but
absolutely.
the signs I see are $250,000 to $300,000 for new construction, and I can tell you, my house would fit in their basement. But I also know that I asked quite a few questions and I deliberated over it, and it wasn't light and it wasn't fun, and still is not fun, still bothers me. But I do know in this I've also committed to researching even more to find out more facts. And one of the things I did is I went out to the local police websites from the villages around, and we are sorely under-policed compared to those who we are competing with growth for. Amelia has 9 cops. Williamsburg has 7 full-time, a dog, so 8 if you count the dog, which I do because I like dogs, and 4 part-time. Georgetown has 8 full-time and 6 part-time cops. Fayetteville has 12 police officers. Batavia has 5 full-time and 4 part-time that I know of as far as their websites. Now, that information could vary depending on how up-to-date their websites are. I could not find out on New Richmond. I could not find out on Felicity. And I could not find out on, I believe it was Owensville, as far as their cops, but I'll continue to try to find out. But we have 5 officers, and that is when we had funding, and that was going from 3 officers. And no matter which way we go, whether it be a county sheriff office or a police force local, I think that the one thing that we should all consider is saying thank you for our chief and Officer Breeze and some of the other officers who gave up all that time so that we were covered when we were just 3 officers in and 80 hours a week, which I did ask the sheriff if we got in a bind. That is not happening with them. I also asked them about liability through email because it was kind of awkward, to say the least, at that meeting for me. And we do not have any less liability going with the county sheriff. They can sue both the village and the sheriff's office. So the liability option is not any better. The other thing that I had was just, and you reiterated it tonight, that on the income tax, only 11% of our residents were having to pay that. It was mostly outside.
Through payroll deductions.
Through payroll deductions? Okay. So how much was actually from our residents versus?
42% was paid by village residents, 58% by non-residents of all dollars combined, payroll, net profit, residents, everything combined.
All right. And the other thing is that I do watch Facebook. I do try to reply to people. I do try to answer honestly, whether it works out in my favor or in somebody else's favor as to what they assumed was right. I do try to answer you. And I do that because I know that the culture has changed. Facebook is now a point of contact for people. Facebook is how they get all their information. So I think it would be beneficial for our police force, whether it be sheriff's office or local, that somebody volunteer to have a Facebook page that updates people to show them that we do have crime in this village. I think it's easy to forget that if you're not having to call the police. I was talking to Jay the other night, and I said I think I've called you guys maybe 3 times in my entire life, which is over 30 and some change. So it's easy to forget how important it can be to have that option to pick up the phone and call police. So I think if we could advertise some of the things that's happening, not in a way that impedes on anybody accused of a crime or gives out details or anything that would harm somebody who was a victim of a crime, but maybe if we say, hey, we had,
Like his police reports.
right, except for, hey, we busted a car full of meth and guns, you know, that might help show the case for the need of safety. And I don't know if that would affect the handbook or not.
Well, the handbook now allows for the police to post, you know, if they can give me any article and it'll go on the main Facebook page. And that's something that, it would benefit the Facebook page of the village because it would add, you know, it would be nice to have something to post more regularly.
Right. And
Can I say something?
No, sir, just hold on, she's speaking.
I also wanted to check and see if we did the 4%, how likely is it that we're going to have a street levy and other things that general fund is
4 mil.
picking? The 4 mil, yeah.
4% would be
Oh,
very likely.
sorry, 4 mil. 4 mil, sorry.
How you moving?
If we did the 4 mil, how likely is that one going to result in further taxes? Which kind of came up tonight, that it would probably lead to another tax. But how many other taxes would that lead to? Are we going to have another police one to increase police, and then we're going to have a street one to pay for the bridges and things like that?
Maybe a parks one to fund parks.
Okay. And then, sir, what was your comment? Because I have quite a bit.
Well, I agree with you on that, the police, putting something in the paper or on Facebook, because I look on Facebook and I see, like Middletown's the main one comes to mind, where they make all these drug busts. Well, you don't ever know. I don't even know that the police around here even check for drugs. You know, because you never see nothing.
Right. Right, and that's,
To me, it's important to get drug people out of here.
it is happening here. But I agree, we kind of have to adjust to that.
You know, not a sheriff or
Timeframe.
state patrol doing it, the police in Bethel.
Right.
Okay, you got more, Miss?
So, let's see. The other thing that concerned me in the safety meeting when we talked to the sheriff's department, and I don't know if everybody has had a chance to look at it, but it looks like it increases the first year by like 15,300, just around. It's like 15,291, so I'll round it up a little bit. And then in 2020, it went up $43,361, so roughly $43,400. Does anybody know, is that like the trend that commonly occurs with that, or?
Can you say something about healthcare too, though? I mean, the healthcare prices are, and they have they have the PPO. And I think I was assuming that and a family, which, someone who's on both sides of it.
Mr. Noble got the,
Right, and I didn't even crack it open because I feel that that's a safety meeting discussion, because once we get our budget number, then they figure out what's best for that value. But if you crack those open, you got contracts from Batavia Township all the way back to 2001. We have contracts for Tate Township all the way back to 2012. And then if you do some math, you can kind of see the increases. I did talk to Jim Maloney. He did say that every contract that they have has the same cost for deputies, and you know, whatever that they charge is all equal on every contract. So the only thing that would be a non-controllable would be mileage and gasoline, those types of things, or maybe a vehicle that blew an engine or something. But other than that, everything else would be the same number for everyone. So if you go back and you look at their trends, then you could see maybe they had a spike because they had a union contract or decision where maybe they had to pay more for healthcare, so it jumped everybody's up. So I mean, you can see the trends. But once you're in that contract, you're locked.
and then every 3 years, when the contract's renegotiated, they went up almost $20,000 an officer, every 3 years.
That's where they get the increase. That's true of any contract.
And that's why I didn't even crack it open. I didn't want to even look at it. It's not my debate. It's
Right.
safety's debate, not mine.
The other thing that concerned me from the finance committee tonight was the fact that if we do a 4 mil levy, if we pass a 4 mil levy, that's pretty much only local, right? So
What do you mean local?
it was only for local on the levy, right? You can only do local police force.
It's property owners within
The village about
the
that.
village.
No, I mean,
Police department, not
funding.
funding the sheriff's department.
Oh, I'm sorry.
the police department.
Yes, the way I read the statute is that it would be for a village police department, not for a sheriff's department.
So,
Fair to, I'm sorry, is it fair to say that if you want to keep our local police, vote for the 4 mil? If, you know, or if you don't want no taxes at all, then, I mean, I don't know, because I mean, the 4 mil levy is only for our local. So if you vote yes for it, then that's gonna mean we're gonna keep them.
But the income tax could do the same thing. It could keep our
Right, I know,
local
I
police
mean,
as
if they
well.
wanted
I
to
think
go
that's
to-
misleading.
Yeah, if I wanted to go to the tax levy
throw that out,
way,
I
that
think
would
it's
guarantee our local to stay.
I will confirm
Either
that
could guarantee that.
before.
I mean, that's what I mean.
I will confirm that before you have to vote on a resolution or an ordinance to proceed, so that you know for sure what you can use the 4 mil levy for.
okay.
Don't we have to do the 4 mil tonight, though, to get in?
Just the first,
There's a resolution of necessity, and then I take, that's tonight, then I take that to the auditor's office. They certify the amount of money it will raise, get that back to us, then we'll have to do a resolution to proceed to put it on the ballot.
Ms. Brown, you're still on.
Last thing I have is, just so that you know, currently it's 52% no on a 4 mil levy per the poll from the township resident, and 54% yes for the local police on the township residents poll.
You have to subtract out the people from California and Illinois and all that.
Right, which doesn't really hold a whole lot of grain of salt, but I don't know if it helps
Did they used
anybody
to live
make.
here at least, or?
They're in the township.
Oh, I see.
That I think, but just so that you know, I mean, no matter what we do, it's still no guarantee at this point for funding. I just want to be totally honest with people that a 4 mil levy can go on, but ultimately it's up to you if you want to vote for it. And I appreciate your patience in listening to my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Brown, you never cease to amaze me. I mean that admiringly. Mr. Coon.
Ms. Shepherd, I voted no on you as pro town, only for one specific reason. I wanted to bring it to attention that the mayor did not afford us the opportunity to nominate a second individual.
Well,
Yes,
yes,
to vote on one person.
no, I mean, I hesitated. There could have been another.
There wasn't a long enough hesitation. I did not get afforded the opportunity to do that, sir.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah. And I just want to put that on record. That's why I said that.
Okay.
Okay? Secondly, I feel like you slighted me because I spent a lot of time out there trying to inform the voting public what was going to happen with this tax. I spent a lot of time out there. I was originally against that tax, and I went for it, specifically to help this village. I want this village to grow, and I know it's going to prosper with the proper funding. You know the people don't like getting stuff slammed down their throats, and it's exactly what's been happening. They've been getting stuff shoved in their throats, and they're against it. They want to have the opportunity to sit and vote for it. And that's part of the reason why I want to have this town hall. I think through the town hall, you can educate the people and let them know what the value of this is, and show them a direction that we can go off in. And if we don't have a direction, and we're not affording them that opportunity, you're sliding them. And I'm letting you know that, just straight out from what I've been hearing from people. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Coogan. Ms. Shepherd?
Well, I want to ask Janessa one question. When she named off her local communities minutes ago, what did they all have in common? Every single solitary one of those had one thing in common.
Fayetteville, I can't speak to, but the rest of them all have a 1% income tax, and
Fayetteville
most of
has
them
one.
have a levy as well.
As we've said before, you can do anything you want to do if you've got the money for it. That's one thing I taught my kids. You can buy anything you want. You go get the money for it. Okay, so that's how they're getting their 9 and 10 and 11 officers or whatever, so. Another thing, I fail to understand the, I don't know what to call them, I'm not going to describe them as Mayor Osmond described the people who worked on the initiative, because I fail to understand why you want to do an initiative to repeal the income tax in the village where you live. It only hurts those people that, yes, they have, by law, they can do that. But there's also a time when just because you are allowed to do something, you have to stop and think, should I do that? Should I do that? And what's the purpose of it? If you want to do an initiative, go to Milford. Get rid of that. Get rid of that income tax. Go to Amelia. Get rid of wherever you go wherever you work and get rid of that. Get rid of that 1 or 1.5% or City of Cincinnati with a 2.1%. Why pick the village where you live, where it hurts you the most? As you say, we've got free choice here. Well, go to the other villages. Spend some time over there and get rid of the one that costs you the most. Why get rid of 0.5%? The least that would affect you. Now, that's just my opinion. Now, another thing is, I think, for the council members, our job is to look forward, not look back. We've been in the past. The past is over. The past is done with. It cannot be changed. Yes, we went through a period of time where I'm going to call them uneducated. Unknowledgeable would be better, because I'm sure they were educated. Unknowledgeable people moved monies around, put us into fiscal emergency. Again, that's all in the past, and we are past that. It's now time to look forward, and as a council here, together, look forward. What are we going to do for the village of Bethel in the future? What can we do, and what should we do for the village of Bethel? The 2,763 plus or minus residents of this village, not just the people that get to vote and not just the people that go to the polls, but for the entire village. It will remain my dream until the day I die to have a solar plant out there. Now, you've heard me talk about it before, but if we can come together, why don't we bring something good to the village, work on something good to the village, and reduce our electric bills and give it directly back to the people? Again, I say, all you have to do is figure out how to pay for it. Decide you want to do it, figure out how to pay for it. So instead of going backwards, look forward. Bring something good to these people. Bring something good. And the only thing I can think of at the moment, unless somebody else comes up with another idea, let's do something good for the people of this village. Because we have to be united on this. This isn't about an income tax or the promises that you made at election time. That happens everywhere, every election. I'm not shooting you two down for that. But I am disappointed that you didn't vote to reinstate the income tax. But that's your personal opinion. And that's what you should do, if that's what you want to do.
I fought vehemently on that.
Yes, I know that.
And
I know that.
I went out there and talked to people in many cases.
And here we go again. We're going back to the...
Me and him ain't the only two
Now, hold on.
that know for this income tax. Thank you.
Hold on. We're going back to the finance meeting where you had your child that you finally got laid off and you've lost your job. Now you're going to tell that child you're going to give them $7.50. They don't care why you're only giving them $7.50. They don't care. They want their $15. It's to them it's a moot point. It's also a moot point.
Your money is valuable to them.
It is.
I want you to know that.
It is.
It's not just throwaway stuff.
And that,
every entity in this country is hitting them up.
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is. But our job as council here is to do good for the village, for every single solitary resident of the village. And I want to speak, Mr. Sir, I don't know your name.
I'm Zach Grewy.
Zach Grewy. I have a feeling that, I'm hoping that we don't have to post on our Facebook page, police page, about all the drug busts that we have.
You don't think there's any drug in
I know they're here. Everybody knows that. We don't deny that.
They're worth the money. They don't just.
Well, okay. Well, here's the problem. They can't say anything until they make that drug bust. And what's missing on that Facebook page is how many hours, months, possibly years that Middletown would put into one drug bust.
Oh, yeah.
And I think here within the village, I think we have people here that see something and they say something, because we hear it. I think we have that here. And I think that's important for people to continue to do that. But the wheels of justice turn very slowly.
Okay.
So it's like what the prosecutor says on TV. You know, bring me the evidence so I can have a strong case. They have to build their cases, and it does take a long time. I'm done.
All right, thanks, Ms. Shepherd. Dawn.
Okay, first I'll apologize to Janessa for interrupting her on her call of members. That was out of order.
Oh, yeah.
I apologize. And I had a couple of questions about the general fund. So say we have a culvert that breaks and busts and we have to fix it tomorrow, but we don't have that $100,000. Can that money come out of the general fund? Is that general fund money able to go wherever it needs to go? Certain funds have to stay within themselves, but general fund goes everywhere it needs,
General
correct?
fund is unrestricted.
Unrestricted. Okay, so once we've lost that money from Rita and it now needs to go to the police, we're losing this emergency nest egg that if anything happens in the village, we can't pay for it, correct?
Done.
I'm just being overly specific. And then, Bill, I know I've asked you this before, but just to be specific, if a levy goes through for $4 million and you have a $50,000 home, just trying to use round numbers, how much per year is that added to your tax?
$70.
$70, and that's for a $4 million.
Taxes are assessed at 35%, so a $100,000 home would be assessed at $35,000. $1 million, $35,000 is $35.
Okay.
So it'd be $70 on a $100,000 home, $35 on a $50, and so on and so on.
35% of the assessed value, so a $100,000 home would be assessed at $35,000, and then, okay.
$1 million is $35. So $4 million would be, I said that wrong, $4 million would be $140 on a $100,000 home, 70 on a $50,000 home.
$100,000 home would be $140 extra dollars a year on a $4 million levy. Okay, all right.
May I say one thing about that?
Please, yes.
The value is the auditor's value, not necessarily a value if someone has gone and gotten a line of credit or whatever on their home, or in their minds, you know, it's worth X thousands of dollars. It is the auditor's value. It's 35% of that. And if you will check your auditor's websites, you'll see unbelievable lower
Right, it's historically
prices.
lower. You typically would not sell your house for what they have it on the books
Right.
for.
Okay.
I'm talking probably $30,000 below what's called real estate market value.
Market value.
Okay.
Not auditor's value.
Okay, so we've got to have funding for a police department. I don't want a part-time police department, I want a full-time police department. I've stood behind that for the 3 years I've been here. I've voted that way and I will continue to do so. This is probably the best time to ask this. If we are going to push towards a $4 million levy in May, is there any way that we could start the paperwork with Rita on the assumption that possibly if the levy failed, then we as a council could enact an income tax, but already have that 3 to 6 month lag time with Rita, kind of get that ball rolling? I know that we would have to come up with an ordinance as a council, but could we do that with the assumption that if the levy passes in May, obviously, we get rid of the income tax immediately, or possibly it hasn't even taken effect by that point. But I'm trying to figure out some way that we can have our cake and eat it too, where if it does fail in May, we have things starting rolling that by July 1st, they could start the income tax.
I would probably defer to Ms. Supinger for that, but I think on the surface, I would think the logistics of trying to navigate that would be almost impossible.
Well, and I'd have to take a vote of council,
And that,
obviously.
yes, obviously it would have to, but if that, and I've kind of heard that from a couple of people, if this levy fails, it would maybe clarify our position a little easier of, this is where we have to move towards to be able to do what we want to do. And in my eyes, it cannot just be to keep a part-time police force. It needs to be to keep a full-time police force, as well as emergency money in the general fund, park money in the general fund. We want to get another picnic table. We want to put some more playground equipment in for the little kids. Our village is not going to prosper on 4 mil. It's not going to prosper, it's not going to go anywhere. And in 2019 and 2020 and 2021, we're going to continue to lose money from the state. And we as a village have to come together and pay for those things. No one is banging down Columbus's door telling them, I don't want to pay your state taxes. No one's sitting up at Capitol Hill telling them, we don't want to pay your federal taxes. Unfortunately, it is a necessary evil as an American citizen that you are responsible to pay for the services you get. And our state taxes had been coming back to us as a village, but they're going to start cutting that. Somebody has to make up for it. And unfortunately, that is the residents that live here. We're responsible for taking care of our own. And as far as the levy, I think the levy hits a very small population at Harder, where the income tax is a much more fair tax that just evens it out, it distributes it, and it's based on what you make, not the value of your home, which two very totally different things. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks. Good call, members, everybody. Thank you. Brings us to legislation. An ordinance 1903 is an ordinance amending Article 9 of the Village of Bethel Employee Handbook.
We need a motion to suspend the rules.
We need to waive the 3 on this.
I move we waive the 3 reading rule ordinance 1903.
I'll second that.
Call roll, please, Mr. Gilbert.
I'm going to have to start writing it down. For whatever reason, the names do not appear to be showing up on the list all of a sudden. It's blank. So, who made that motion?
Ms. Shepherd.
Ms. Shepherd,
And I
seconded by Ms. Holliday.
This is to waive on 1903. Okay. Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Can I ask a question?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, then yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Double yes. Now to adopt ordinance 1903, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we adopt ordinance 1903.
Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Ms. Shepherd and Mr. Coogan? No? Do you have a question?
That's your question.
He needs to call the
can
roll
we-
first.
I need to call the roll.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no,
No, you have
we
discussion.
after a second.
Oh,
So
okay.
could we just kind of go over what this is for the people in the audience so that they know?
Yeah, the village had an existing credit card policy that governed how Village of Bethel credit cards were to be used and how they needed to be reported, and had certain things in place to help prevent any instance of fraud or et cetera. The General Assembly passed legislation late last year that imposed a requirement that municipalities that have a credit card adopt a policy that complies with what the state statute was going to require. So because of that general law going into effect, we needed to amend our credit card policy to meet the requirements of the state law.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Okay, just a moment. I think I've figured out a way to add one. Second one was Ms. Shepherd. Mr. Coogan. Okay, got it back up. Okay, we ready for the roll?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
And Ms. Supinger says we do need to pass it as an emergency because it was actually supposed to be enacted last month. So I would entertain a motion to adopt this as an emergency.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Holyfield. Do I hear a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Would you call that roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Well, okay. Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Thank you. 1903 is adopted. Now, we're coming to ordinance 1904, an ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance number 1419, regulating solicitors and peddlers and declaring it an emergency. And we need to waive the 3 on this as well.
I make a motion to waive the 3 on ordinance 1904.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I heard Ms. Brown first.
Quit trying to beat me, Brian.
Okay.
Could you call the roll, please,
I
to
was
waive the 3?
fixing that again. Who made the motion, please?
Mr. Noble?
And second?
Ms. Brown?
Okay. Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Thank you.
Before we move on adoption, I noticed an error in the emergency clause, so if I could get a motion to amend the emergency clause to reflect that it will go into effect immediately upon passage, I would appreciate it.
I make a motion to have ordinance 1904 go into effect immediately in correction of the...
Just to correct the
ordinance.
emergency clause, and I'll correct it.
It looks like the permit is 6 months, which can be renewed.
It's up to 6 months, yeah.
I'll second Jay's amendment of the emergency clause
For 1904.
for 1904.
You got that, Mr. Gilpin?
I do.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions or discussions more about this?
No, I just noticed when I looked at it, I must have pulled this emergency clause from a different piece of legislation that had a specific time period requirement, which we don't usually have for an emergency clause, so I just want to make sure it's clarified that it goes into effect right away.
And this is the solicitors and canvassing.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Now to adopt it as an emergency?
No, now it's adoption. That was a motion to amend,
Okay,
so not to adopt.
thank you.
I move we adopt ordinance 1904.
No, we had already waived the 3 and that was
No, we
it.
waived the 3, and then we made a motion to amend.
Now
and
we
need
do
to
adopt.
Now we need to adopt.
I'll second.
I knew that.
All right. I thought I missed a motion in there.
Who made the motion? Ms. Shepherd?
And I second.
Ms. Brown? Don't say it. Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Okay, now to make it an emergency. Entertain a motion.
I move we make ordinance 1904 an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. Hallfield and Mr. Coogan. Call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
All right, through much awkwardness, ordinance 1904 is passed. Ordinance 1905, an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the Village of Bethel, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019. We also need to waive the 3 on this.
I move we waive the 3 reading rule on ordinance 1905.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. I'll call the roll, please. Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Thank you. Now to adopt ordinance 1905, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion we adopt ordinance 1905.
Second that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ross and Mr. Coogan. Is there any questions or discussions about 1905?
And this is just the changes that Bill spoke to earlier for the
Burke Trust.
Burke Trust.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 1905 is adopted. Resolution 1026, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to submit applications for community development block grant funds, to accept the necessary contracts and to enter into any necessary contracts for the expenditure of the community development block grant funds. And we need to waive the 3 reading rule.
I move we waive the 3 reading rule on Resolution 1026.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Ms. Shepherd and Mr. Coogan. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
No.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Abstain.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
We still are going to have an opportunity to ask questions.
Yes.
Questions, correct? Then yes.
So the abstain goes with the majority.
Abstain goes with the majority.
So that is a waiving of it then. So I'd entertain a motion to adopt resolution, I'm sorry, yes. I'd entertain a motion to adopt resolution 1026.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I will second, so I can ask my
Ms.
question.
Holifield, let's hear questions.
I know, I'm like, oh, do I want my questions or do I want?
Questions?
So this is just giving our village administrator the opportunity to submit those applications and see if we're approved. However, when he submits the applications, do we have to have the matching funds that go with the
This is what he spoke to
specification?
earlier. This is from street funds.
Oh, this is from street funds?
Street funds,
Nothing
yep.
to do with the general fund?
Nope.
That was my question, thank you.
And this is specific just to this project. It's not granting him any more authority on,
It specifies the South Charity Street Stormwater Repair Project.
How much money is in the street fund?
Depends on, we have,
I mean, how much does the levy bring in each year?
about 90,000 or.
So it'll come out of the levy for the year.
So is there any money that's in that street fund that ever got inflated because we had the income tax? Do we have any money come from the general fund at any period in the last 10 years that go into that street
Go in
fund?
the street fund?
You have to ask
No,
me.
we did the grant match for the storm sewer project, but the money was expended from the general fund on a street project. We did not, yes, the match was half street, half general fund for the street project, but we did not transfer money from the general fund to the street fund. It was expended from the general fund and the street fund.
Okay, and how much yearly do we spend just for daily activity or repairs or whatever from the street fund, in general, on average, without any grant matches or anything?
Well, I mean, I don't know the dollar amounts off the top of my head. I can tell you that we pretty much spend dollar for dollar, every dollar that's brought in, because our street paving program each year is limited to how much money we have left. Travis always comes to me and says, how much can we afford for street paving this year? And I tell him where we're looking on supplies and so forth, and I give him a dollar amount of what I think we can afford. So the short answer to the question is we keep the reserve that we need to do to keep on hand, but we actually spend pretty much dollar for dollar what the revenue is. We have 4 street funds that get added together. There's the street fund, state highway fund, state MVL fund, and permissive MVL. And MVL means motor vehicle license, which are license plate fees. The other 2 street funds get their money from gas tax, and the one is, of course, the small street levy that we have. All 4 of those funds combine for the same type of expenditures.
The levy's restricted to paving and culvert repair.
Well, my concern, I guess, would be if, just hypothetically, we reach out and we get a grant match in and we have the money in the street fund to fund it and we approve that, and then something crazy happens and there ain't no money in there, then we would have to pull from the general fund in order to repair whatever emergency happened.
Well,
we would deplete the fund by or at least take money out.
I don't think anything crazy can happen to that fund. That's the only thing it can be
Well, I think
spent
Mr.
on.
Noble means if we use the whole fund as a grant match, which I don't believe we would use the whole fund as a grant match.
It'll be about 40.
I mean, I just don't want to get into a situation where we have a little bit of money in the general fund, and we have to decide, do we fix a bridge or a culvert, or we give it to the police to keep them as close to full-time as possible? And, you know, I don't necessarily, if this isn't going to put that big of a dent in the street fund amount when it comes back, then I would entertain to, you know, to look at it. But if it's going to come back to where, you know, it's going to deplete the street fund, I don't even really want to see the numbers. I mean, it's not even do it.
The grant match is 40,000.
It will deplete the
Travis?
street fund.
What that will do is take 40,000 out of what we can do for paving, which is what I believe he said earlier. This will affect the amount of money we can dedicate towards street paving.
This is a culvert that, it's past its life expectancy, and it goes under charity, so, you know,
This is public safety.
It's a
as well.
danger. It's a danger at this point.
you know, you're talking about an issue where if you didn't have the grant and this collapsed, then you would
You
have.
would be out of money.
We would just close the street at that
Right,
point.
but we had the
Can
choice
you-
of having them on for 40,000 and they wasn't here and someone got shot and killed. I mean, you're.
Yeah, but that 40,000 has nothing to do with the
We
police.
can't spend
No,
it.
but I'm just saying if we got into a situation where we got the grant match, we did it, you had 40,000 taken out, and then say something happened on Union Street or over on wherever, and, you know, the sidewalk collapsed in over the bridge or whatever, and we had to make emergency repair on that, and you had to choose.
But this is a chance of us to maybe spend 40,000 and get a $250,000 block grant.
Repair.
Free money.
Yeah, and I would advise council that this is not something, we're not trying to make this look pretty. This is an issue that's,
Right, this is not a-
deteriorated.
Is this somewhere when it collapses that you can cut off the road and people still be able to get to their homes?
Sure, you drive around the block, because we've had that.
Okay.
I
Because
really
I
hope
think,
that's not the way that this
some.
village is
No.
wanting to go.
but I think
Charity
Jay's,
counties, that's a thoroughfare,
Yeah.
charity is.
I think
that's-
Jay's concern is future, like, street issues come up and then we don't have the street fund and then the general fund has to be used. Or is it, in my opinion, I'm looking at this like, okay, the police are separate from the street and the street fund say, we do this, we do the paving or whatever we have to do, we don't have anything in that fund, and then, like Jay said, a bridge collapses on Union, now we're shutting Union down. We're just gonna shut the street down because we're not gonna give up our cops.
Right.
Well, and how long was Charity Street closed the last time we had this problem? Down in the 200 block? when
Weeks.
We drove around.
Weeks.
I think I remember it being months, more like months.
Yeah, it was quite a period.
Do any
it
of
was
you
a
live
long
on?
time.
I mean, that was because of issues that were out of our control, but.
Yeah, that was because of a gas line problem.
Yeah.
But is there any questions about, other discussion about 1026?
If I could clarify, this needs to be amended, it's actually North Charity, that's a typo, it
It's
should
North
be, it's
Charity.
North Charity Street,
So that's the side of town.
yes, it's right over here.
If I may add, when Travis turns in the grant application, he comes to me, I have to sign a clerk's certification as to what fund that money's coming from. That goes with the grant application. So I'll certify that that grant match comes from the street fund, and audit will check that.
And this is 2019 application, 2020 construction,
Right.
So we won't be expending the money until 2020,
correct?
correct?
Now, if we have a nightmare scenario between now and then, we don't have the match, when the time comes, we don't have the match.
And if we get the grant, you guys will have the opportunity to vote on whether we do it or not as well.
No, that's typically once you commit to applying for, you commit to fulfilling
Matching
it
it.
and doing it. That's not to say that the county wouldn't excuse you if the matching funds aren't there, but it's not something you want to do on a regular basis or you're not going to get the grants anymore.
I'm just
So-
saying, if you submit an application, that means you have to give them the money?
If
We're
you-
committing to that, yeah.
You're committing that if you get the.
I'm just
grant,
saying, if
you're
half the
going to-
village collapsed on that side of town, we could say, hey, you know, we have kind of an emergency here, we can't do it.
I mean, it's the county, we have a.
And your fire department uses that bridge constantly.
Yep. Any other discussion about 1026?
No.
Call a roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
Yes.
All right, good discussion. Job.
So we have another resolution.
Do you,
I can read it.
you got it?
This will be Resolution 1027.
Yeah.
This is a resolution declaring the necessity for a tax levy in excess of the 10 mil limitation and requesting the county auditor to certify matters in connection therewith, whereas the council of the Village of Bethel anticipates levying a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation as described herein, and whereas pursuant to section 5705.03 of the Ohio Revised Code, this council is required to certify to the county auditor a resolution requesting the county auditor to certify certain matters in connection with such a tax levy. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the Village of Bethel, Claremont County, Ohio, that Section 1, that pursuant to the provisions of section 5705.19J of the Ohio Revised Code, it is necessary to levy a 4 mil tax for the purpose of providing and maintaining motor vehicles, communications, and other equipment, buildings, and sites for such buildings used directly in the operation of a police department, for the payment of salaries of permanent or part-time police, communications, or administrative personnel to operate the same, including the payment of any employer contributions required for such personnel under section 145.48 or 742.33 of the revised code, or for the payment of other related costs at a rate not exceeding 4 mils for each dollar of valuation, which amounts to 40 cents for each $100 of valuation for a continuing period. Section 2, that the tax levy shall be imposed upon the entire territory of the Village of Bethel, all of which is located in Claremont County, Ohio. Section 3, that the question of the passage of said tax levy shall be submitted to the electors of the entire territory of the village at the election to be held on May 8, 2019, and if approved by the electors shall first be placed upon the 2019 tax list and duplicate. First collection shall take place in calendar year 2020. Section 4, that pursuant to the provisions of section 705.03 of the Ohio Revised Code, the county auditor is hereby requested to certify to the Village of Bethel Council the total current tax valuation of the village and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by the number of mills specified in section 1 hereof, and fiscal officer B and is hereby directed to certify forthwith a copy of this resolution to the county auditor at the earliest possible time so that said county auditors may certify such matters in accordance with such section 5705.03. Section 5, that it is found and determined that all formal actions of this Bethel Council concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this municipal council resulted in such formal action or in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code and the rules of this council adopted in accordance therewith, adopted January 10th, 2019.
All right. This
That's
is
all.
Resolution 1027. You have heard it read, council. Need to waive the 3. I'd entertain a motion to waive the 3.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
No.
Mr. Coogan?
Abstain.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
Yes. This just leaves it open for discussion, correct?
It's waiving the 3.
Thank you.
Waiving the 3.
No,
It's
successful.
5 to 3,
Yes.
doesn't it?
What's that?
No, he abstained, so it goes with the majority.
Does it take 5?
It's,
Yeah.
the abstention's gonna count.
Okay.
Not everybody logged their vote yet.
How's that?
I've got you should be able to see it in front of you.
Oh, I pushed it. It was me.
Okay.
Now
Now I
to
got it.
adopt Resolution 1027, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we adopt Resolution 1027.
Thank you. May I hear a second? Ms. Shepherd, may I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Discussion.
My problem with this is, one, it's not enough money. Two, you've already discussed putting on additional property tax on people. And in the same sentence, when we say we want to listen to people's votes, we're saying somehow the income tax repeal vote is more important than the multiple levy votes that said no as well. And I'm just really struggling with that aspect of it. So if anybody could give me a real good justification why one no is more powerful than the other no, I would have a little less hard time with it. And some kind of assurance that we're not going to still have to instill that income tax, because people might vote for one levy if we're lucky. Who is voting for multiple levies to fund streets and parks and additional cops because we're only providing them part-time coverage and crime doesn't go down? I've never seen crime go down with less cops based off of any statistics I can find. So if somebody can give me a justification for that, I'll be all for it.
I second everything that you just said.
One of the arguments that has been put out there is, you know, the elderly that have their homes have to pay property taxes, but they don't have to pay income tax. And I have a lot of neighbors that are elderly, and I love them to death, but sometimes you have to be realistic. I mean, if you have a 4 mil levy go on and you have a $50,000 house, you done said it was $70 a year? So if you divide that by 12, if that individual that's in that house cannot afford $7 a month and it's going to put them in bankruptcy and they're going to lose their house, they got other problems beside and property tax. So you can't justify that 100%. And then as far as the people that are working in this town, that whether they have planned a family or accidentally had a family and they're struggling and they can't even get their credit score up and they have to rent and everything else, then you're making them stuck at some of our properties that, you know, they can only afford just having a roof over their heads on whatever they can take. And they, you know, because the income tax, if they both work and they make $60,000 a year, they've got to pay that, you know, and then that's more out of their income versus if they're renting by themselves. And, you know, the increase in their rent amount is not going to be as much as the income tax amount. And we keep complaining that it's a transient, or it's becoming a more transient community. We have to do something to stop the bleeding in that area. If we keep taxing the working people, they're never going to get ahead to buy a house and then take pride in their house and be part of the community. So I mean, I'm totally, that's my side of it.
Okay, so I'll ask you this. The owners of Tate Meadows and the owners of the shoe factory, how much are they going to increase the rent based off your 4 mil levy?
Probably nothing.
Okay.
I disagree.
I run them, so I mean, I know what it is, but he's not going to increase it on 4 mils, I can tell you that.
Okay, well,
But how many, you and I are in the same train of thought there. But there was a particular lady on Facebook that said her rent went up $50.
there are people,
But I can assure you that her, and it was due to a levy, I can assure you that that landowners, that landlords' real estate taxes did not go up $600 a year, as we've demonstrated. She should have had a $140 total increase, approximately. So some landlord that puts a $50, got.
I mean, we did do increases on the school levy.
My real estate taxes went up, so now your rent went up $50.
how much,
Significant.
right,
Yeah.
but you say that like
wasn't
that's a
that much.
guarantee that you're going to get renters ahead. I can speak from experience with that school levy, and my landlord is very, very nice and didn't put on any for 10 years. He increased my rent $25, so I'm paying rent, I pay home tax, so I'm going to pay either way. I have skin in either way. So it actually is cheaper for me to pay a levy once I move to the house. But right now, at that apartment, I pay $25 more, which is actually more than the 0.5%.
In income tax, exactly.
You could do the whole 1% and I would be paying less.
Well, let me tell you this, I mean, I'm a business guy and I work with these investors and stuff that has these, I've got properties in Batavia and New Richmond and Mount Washington. And, I've got them everywhere. And when we have these discussions and everything, the rent increases are not 100% necessarily related to the levy passing. We go through quarter by quarter and yearly and so forth. And if we have, all of our depreciated equipment, like stoves or refrigerators are starting to fail and we're replacing those, we put all of it together, we're kind of teetering on it, but then when you have a levy go on, and it might kick it over. But some of the individual rent, landlords that have just a house by itself and there's only one tenant in it, I can see them increasing those.
Right.
So there's only one person paying that, the man who owns the buildings.
I wanted to bring something up, Mr. Johnson just reminded me, when we were discussing passing this income tax back in 2014, we had a group of apartment owners come, and one of them happened to be the apartment owner and they were very much in favor of the income tax. Because they wanted us to use it to supplement water rates. That was their thing. They were very much not in favor of property tax at that time. So.
And I appreciate that your landlords aren't going to do it, but what we're offering people with 4 mil levy is less police protection, the possibility of paying more on your rent, which depending on how that works out may or may not be less than the income tax. But we're offering them less for more. And I find that hard to swallow as somebody who lives paycheck to paycheck myself. If you want money from me, give me something.
We're still discussing Resolution 1027 here. That's for Jackie.
So that's, and also it does, to your point earlier in finance, the only way a homeowner can control the cost of a property tax is to let their property go. Because the outside is what the auditors looks at to make your assessment. Is that correct, Bill?
I have no clue on that.
Because I don't know that they go in your house.
Well, I kind of disagree with that theory.
They look at comparable sales as well.
Do they?
I
Okay.
mean, as far as the penalties of not paying a property tax versus not paying an income tax is a criminal penalty, and a property tax is you deal with possibly losing your house, but you don't get criminally charged if you don't pay it. So there's a big difference there too.
Is that true? Have we ever had anybody go to jail for a income tax when we can't even keep them in jail for drugs? Is that happening?
Actually, we waive the penalties ourselves, but I can't say whether somebody's ever went to jail.
I couldn't tell you whether anybody went to jail over a municipal
I
income
know
tax.
of an individual in Amelia that had an imposition on him. He was sent to jail for specifically not paying taxes.
Taxes or income tax?
Yeah.
So could we find that out from Rita, how many people have actually went to jail for the income tax?
Taxes on his property.
I don't know how they would even have that information.
For property
I
taxes?
thought you were talking about income taxes.
Well, property tax, I know you have 1.5 years before, when the auditor, when I called them, they said about 1.5 years of not paying and then you're going to be in trouble. But if you have a mortgage on your house, you're going to be in trouble way before that. So there's not really any good tax. I mean, I hate to say it.
No,
that's the truth.
There's no good tax.
And I just can't be comfortable putting one before the other. If I'm going to listen to the voter, then it means all the voters. And unfortunately, I know half of the village would love me to say yes to the levy, and half the village would love me to say yes to an income tax. So right now, I'm just going to wipe my slate clean and say no.
Well, we are still discussing 1027. We have a first and a second on a motion to adopt it. Is there any other discussion about 1027?
Mayor, if may, Ms. Ross pointed out to me that it actually, on their screens, it says 1026, only because I had to tag it at the bottom of that. The resolution wasn't attached to the agenda, so even though it says 1026 on your screen, your vote is for 1027.
Yes, that's the one. That's the resolution that Mr. Dotson read. Thank you for pointing that out, Ms. Ross.
I'd like to discuss the amount. It's not even a Band-Aid. We can't get, $4 million is not going to get us anywhere.
4 mils.
4 mil.
4 million.
4%.
Oh my God.
off, but,
Four mills will bring about
This is the
129.
only thing that we could come to an agreement on in finance.
4 mills will bring in about 139 of a $535,000 budget.
and from what Sergeant Teague gave us, 139 plus the 250-ish that we would be taking out of the general fund if we so determined that that would be the amount, is that correct?
Did Sergeant Teague get tired and go home?
I think so.
You know how the meeting.
He probably got discouraged. And as I said before, whatever their budget is,
They're
is
gonna
what
work
you work
around.
with. That's it.
all
That's
we
what you
got.
work with.
But
That's
as
all you have.
council, isn't it our job to make sure that we have a full-time police department? Because if
Not
that's what we're
necessarily
pushing for,
full-time.
It's my opinion, but
and we were able to have that with the 0.5%, we were able to fix things, we were able to do things that are going to make us thrive, not just survive. This village is not going to just survive, it's going to slowly start to die off.
And I think that the election next year will make that determination, because we got 2 council seats coming up, we have a mayor seat coming up, so.
That has absolutely nothing to do with what
No,
we're
no, no, no,
doing.
no, 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 I don't mean it like that in no negative way, I'm just saying that if they choose to keep us the way we are, and things keep going the way it is, or someone different comes in some, I don't know, I'm just saying that this is just a stepping stone, and that's why I was asking Bill about the money. If we do no other funding, we don't change anything with the general fund, we've been and the Rita just falls away, and he takes the Rita money that we've been getting and subtracts it from their budget, we're not having any changes in any other funds or anything, all that's staying the same.
Right.
Because they were only making up the difference for what they needed, and they're taking the 300 from them. So
Yes.
if we don't if something happened in the income tax, if we kept it and it came in at 350 this next year, 50,000 would be sitting in the general fund left over because they were already set. So what happens to that 50,000? Well, it's kind of happened a little bit in the last couple of years. So that's what I was asking about. Why do we have to penalize them and take the whole 300,000 from them? Because it did spill over into the general fund, and is there money still there from when it spilled over? Did we take it back and give it back to them to give them more of a cushion? So this is a stepping stone, so we can figure out something else next year and let them get their staffing situated and let them get grounded, because they have some major staffing changes. And it's not staffing changes, so to speak, as far as related to the financial piece. I mean, we have our, good chief here that's put his time in and he's ready to relax, and that was happening whether we had the finances happening or not, and there's going to be changes. I think we need to kind of let them get their bearings and so forth, and
I think they already had their bearings set as what was gonna happen after Chief retired, and because now they don't have any funding, it's the possibility of Chief retiring in March and then not replacing another officer if Sergeant Teague steps up to be the chief. We're just gonna start to dwindle back to overworked officers or missed shifts, or there's gonna be no coverage, and that's just,
We are there. That's where
we are there. And
To be fair, Chief was retiring, but he was going to come back part-time. He wasn't totally retiring.
take a pay cut.
He was taking a pay cut and still going to serve the village because he loves the village and he wants to continue to be an active member of the force. But with this, I'm sure it's probably influencing him more to just enjoy the retired life.
Get out while the getting's good is what I call it.
Right?
He's not going back to working 20
Any
hours
other
a day.
questions about 1027? We need to vote on it. Mr. Gilpin, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
yes.
Ms. Brown?
Nope.
Mr. Coogan?
Abstain.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
No.
That was 3-3. No, that was,
He abstained.
He abstained.
3 noes abstain and 2 yeses.
so the abstention goes with the
No,
majority.
there was 3
yeses and
yeses.
2 noes.
And
Yes.
3 yeses?
3 yeses, 2 noes, 1
No,
abstain.
wait, 1?
1, 2, Ms. Shepherd was a yes.
I voted yes.
Yes, and I were no.
Okay, we're good.
Okay,
I was the no, she was the no, and he was abstain.
gotcha.
So
Well, that was a
where are we?
pass then.
So that's 4.
So it's
4 to
passed.
2. Okay.
It's late.
You gotta stop abstaining, man.
I want to make you work.
It looks like it's,
That the American one.
it's a resolution to.
All right, so resolution 1027 has passed by the skin of its very teeth. And so what will happen now?
I will ask you to stay after the meeting so I can print out a copy of the resolution, 3 copies, so that you can sign it, and I'll sign it, and I will take it to the auditor's office tomorrow morning.
And then council will have to vote to put it on the ballot.
Yes, we'll have to have a special council meeting.
Do we have anything set up for the town hall yet?
Before,
They will take anywhere from 1 day to 1 week to get that back to us.
but it has to be like before February 4th over there to be certified.
We will talk about that tomorrow morning when I'm there, and I'm sure they'll accommodate us. They're very busy in January as well, but I can't imagine they're getting a lot of requests for May ballots,
So
information.
you don't know, we can't set a date yet for the next meeting because it's,
We could tentatively schedule it, and if we have to move it, we can.
Yeah.
But I think if you
I'd like to
look
go
at
ahead
2
and try to
weeks,
set
you're
one.
totally fine.
I'd like to
Don't you think,
try to
Bill?
do that.
Are you talking about the 27th?
Just like
24th
2
would be-
weeks.
24th.
2
24th.
weeks would be enough time for the auditor's office, I think.
I would think a week would be enough.
I can pull up the election calendar and I can.
what does
tell you
council
exactly
think
when.
about the 24th of January, 5:30?
Do you want to wait that late, Bill?
Well, that's the only other night this month after the night that I have a meeting at 6 o'clock. It's
So
the
we're gonna do
24th.
it this-
That's why I said it's on 2 Thursdays.
Mayor's Court's the Mayor's Court's 16th, so 23rd.
23rd? Wednesday?
Wednesday, the
January
23rd work for you, Bill?
Should
Is
What
that right?
time?
Mayor's Court's 16th?
Probably 5:30.
verify that.
23rd to 5:30. Mayor's Court's the 16th.
At 5:30 in council chambers? Is that correct?
23rd of January, 2019, at 5:30 PM in council chambers.
Okay.
Tentatively, it could, right?
No, that's set unless some need to change it, but I don't see them.
All right, good work, council. That brings us to approval of expenses.
May I have a point of order? Are we going to do executive session?
No, that's just rolling thunder. I mean, it just kind of is always on there for some
It's just
reason.
there because we can't add it if we need to. It's just a
Okay.
placeholder.
Okay, thank you.
Good point, though.
Are we going to
Mr. Hembry for a second.
we going to set a town hall date?
Sure. Would council like to do that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's the only way we're gonna reach the masses, and I'd like to have the list of the people who signed the petition to repeal it, because I think we should actually try to reach out to these people and invite them, because we know they actively vote, and we know they actively care.
And we can also put in our billing that we're going to have this town hall meeting.
Yes.
Can you put that on the Facebook?
Yes.
Too?
Yep.
Village?
Now, wait just a
I know.
second. You want to reach out to the people that signed the petitions?
Well, if we're gonna put it on the bills,
For the
then-
initiative?
Well, I didn't know we could put it on the bills. The bill will
Is that what you
actually,
mean, though?
well, I was going to go door to door if I had to, because at least then I knew they voted. But if we can put it on the bill, then it goes out to everybody,
Well, just because
Who
they signed a
gets the bill?
petition doesn't necessarily mean they voted.
There's some of them that just,
sign.
some of them sign it because even though they disagree,
Because they're able.
they have more loyalty to letting people vote for something.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think putting it on the bills like we do
Yeah,
other
if we can do
announcements.
that.
But what about our little mobile sign?
Okay, but yeah, we could do that too. What about a date, y'all?
I'm good with whenever I can
Where are
make
we-
as
where's
many
the
times as we
location?
need. Do it,
Here?
can we do the high school maybe?
I don't think we want to have it here.
Yeah.
Community building.
Community center.
Does
How
that
many
hold?
were you expecting?
Yeah, will that hold enough people?
10. Being
What is it? It
facetious.
holds like 100?
140, I think.
104 or something like that.
Should we see if we could get
Do we
the high
expect more
school
than
just
that?
in case?
No.
Putting it on the
think so.
bills
Well, it'd be
gets
nice if
the
we could do
turnout?
that.
No,
I mean, that's,
no, we're going to use our
Yeah.
community center because
Community
that's a
center,
village property.
date, a date. We want to do it in February.
Well, Valentine's Day is pretty much around that weekend is probably date night, and
We have
Council's not until 14th.
Council is on that one.
Yeah, that's,
Your date
you're
night's gonna be
spending it with
here.
the people you love best.
I'll be your sweetheart.
That's fine. I'll get you a rose, Brian.
So what about, you want to do it on the 13th?
I don't,
Council could be on the 14th.
I work on the 14th too, so.
We were gonna do that meeting on the utility relocation after the council meeting. We printed up the letters. I can.
For the
we can-
14th?
Yeah. and then
That's
we can
fine.
redo 'em.
Let's
That's,
shoot before council meeting. In fact, I'd love to have it before the council meeting, whether you want to do it the first week of February. I'd rather do the second week so we have more time and the bills will
Get the
go
word
out
Yeah,
So when do you want to have it?
February 13th.
Well, the day
Yeah.
before the council meeting.
as long as we can get it on the bills so people can see, and can we do like a later time frame so that people who maybe work.
7.
7.
Seven is, I mean, that's late for me, but I'm good with it.
What do you think, Mr. Coogan?
I'll take
February
the 14th off. I'll
Sounds
pretend like
good,
I have
Mayor.
some good plans.
7 PM on
Stay
February
late.
13th, we are going to have our first ever town hall meeting.
What's the, is there going to be an agenda for that?
I think we probably should try to come up with some facts,
you want.
levy versus income tax facts for people, because I think most people are more concerned about the cost.
Could they submit questions maybe on the, to you, Travis, like through the Facebook maybe? That way,
Or emails, is
or
it?
emails, but I mean, just.
Or
put
come in
someone
in
there who has
person,
submitting
it doesn't
questions.
matter how they get the questions to us.
Yeah, but I think submitting questions maybe ahead of time would be a good idea, something to be, I mean, I think we all know what we're gonna talk about, but if they have something specific that hasn't been
I think
covered.
somebody from the village ought to run it too.
Well, I'll run it.
I think we need police presence.
I'll facilitate it.
You'll
I won't run, I'll facilitate it.
I'll try to print up some facts stuff, or,
Now,
I don't
All
know.
council members can be there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So will that,
Yeah, I'll
we'll
run-
call
I'll run
a meeting to
legal
order,
notice and
is that
publish it.
now? We'll call a meeting to order,
I'll
just
try
have
to
a
get
normal
some
meeting.
stuff together and maybe show
Not
the
necessarily, you
difference.
don't do a roll for people, it's not a council
Well,
meeting.
if
We're not
you,
conducting business.
We're not.
all I'm gonna do is
So
try to
is it-
show, like,
Is it
here's a
done
fact
under
here,
Robert's
here's a fact
rules of
there,
order?
you know,
Or,
or just
It's less
oranges
formal
and
than
that,
that.
you know.
Okay.
It is just a public forum for discussion
And then
about
at
certain
least we can,
Yeah,
at least we can
Organized by-
speak of.
Yeah, well.
so we
The
don't
mayor.
sure to see
Out.
what's on this.
We also need to set ground rules on that,
Yeah.
you know, as far as personal behavior and things that should be followed when they're in there.
All right, so February 13th at 7 PM in the community center. There's nothing going on Wednesday evenings over there, Mr. Dodd?
Yes, there is actually.
Oh, it's Zumba.
Zumba
Yep.
night.
It is
We have to
Zumba night.
cancel.
What time is it?
It's like 6 to
I mean,
7.
some mad leaves.
Do we wanna do,
It's 6,
Maybe we should do 6:30 to
7:30.
6:30 to 7:30? That's really intentional.
Trust me, my legs will tell you I went Monday and Wednesday. Let's go 6:30.
do we have a Tuesday?
hold on, can I grab the, because it's booked apparently, let me
Yeah.
grab
I think she does every Monday and Tuesday there.
I think if we could have handouts for people, because not everybody's comfortable asking questions. Some people are very,
I know the 12th is, that Tuesday is
Bill,
conferences.
did we get everyone to sign in tonight?
Teacher conferences,
Or was it kind of?
February 12th.
Did you guys get to
I
sign
thought
up?
Steve took it around.
And
Okay.
19th.
There's,
Don't want to do that then.
Teacher, I mean,
I see 6 names on
We
it.
did have a latecomers.
I don't either. My
Yeah.
daughter's
Is everybody here signed in?
Did you sign in?
Can you do that, please?
Thank you.
I didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's, you can walk up that podium anytime as long
Officially, he is.
as long as you don't speak.
What do you think, Mr. Dodson?
Sign it as,
Every Monday,
sign it as
Tuesday,
ghost.
Wednesday, and Thursday are booked.
Well, we're gonna have, somebody's gonna have to cancel a
It'll
night.
be a Thursday.
Why?
Well, they're booked.
You said every Monday,
She
Tuesday.
said she doesn't
You're gonna
mind.
make somebody cancel?
Yeah,
The lady that runs
Bobby.
the Zumba, yeah.
so what, is
one night
there
will be okay.
That's $50, isn't
Well, actually, it's making you cancel.
Give her a call. I'll tell you what to do.
is there a way to maybe give her a different night, so she could just flip
Another
it?
person liking, right?
We can offer it to her, she could do Thursday, I don't know if she'll want to.
We're gonna keep it where it is and she'll just, it'll be all right. I might get a nasty gram, but that's okay from your wife, but that's all right.
So we're doing it on Wednesday,
Don't get it for
February
me, I didn't
13th.
resolve the exercise.
Wednesday,
with you.
February 13th at 7 PM.
Okay, one other question. Can we put those on the delinquent bills for January? The ones that are coming out like
Reminds me, I got
the
Yeah,
20th?
most people don't like those bills, but yeah, we can put it on there.
Okay.
There's not that many of those.
But they'll all have it by the 13th. They'll definitely have
For the utility walk over here.
Okay, all right, let's get back on our agenda here. We'll bring us to approval of expenses. Trust you all have seen those. Entertain a motion to approve them as read.
I make a motion, we approve the expenses as read.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Now I'd entertain a motion to pay the bills.
Pay the bills, please.
Thank you, Ms. Hallfield. Do I hear a second?
I'll second them.
Ms. Shepherd, call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Thank you. Good meeting, everyone. We all got our points out there. I'm proud of all of you, and thank you. What brings us to adjournment? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We adjourn.
Is this a record?
Thursday.